So what we're going to do tonight is I'm probably going to have a quick conversation, about 30 minutes or so, and then leave at least half an hour for all you guys to ask questions. But before we start, I want to give you some why we invited all three of them, coming from very, very different perspective. From the investment side of things, we've been hearing there's a lot of funding events that's happening for good, actually, and AirWatch, many others, the MDM, MAM, and enterprise space been getting funding. So I definitely would love to have Tim to talk more about that. And Milo actually is, Silicon Valley Bank is a customer of good. And Milo actually oversees and think about all these different policy and process for a 1,600 some employee organization. So there's a lot of experience and thinking that he has to deal with every day. And then John, coming from good technology, and good actually definitely is the leader in the enterprise space. And we really want to kind of learn more from, coming from a technology perspective, what are some of the things that you would advise the community and what we should think about. So thank you for being here. So why don't we actually start with, why don't you guys introduce yourself and your companies, and just let the whole community know about you. John, would you like to start?
Sure. Okay. I'm John Herrema. I'm SVP at Good Technology, and I head up product management and also our ecosystem part of our business. We have a development platform that is available out to the ISV community, so I'm responsible for the team that actually works with companies of your profile who are perhaps leveraging our platform and looking to get that, use that as an avenue into the enterprise. And so I've been doing it for longer than I care to think about. Somebody just asked me how long have I been with the company, and we've actually grown through acquisition. And so my DNA trail goes all the way back to 2000 when I started a company called Viair that was acquired by the parent company Visto Corp. The moral of the story of the time I've been doing this is that I can tell you guys, having been at this really far too long, the changes in the amount of growth and the opportunity that you can see over the next 2 years is just unbelievable. I mean, I've never been more excited to be in this space. There are a lot of things we were waiting to happen, but all the pieces are in place now, from networks to devices, application platforms, ecosystems. So it's a really cool time to be involved in applications generally and mobile. It's a really, really fun time. So.
Thank you, John. Milo.
Hi, good evening. I'm Milo Sprague, Head of Technology at Silicon Valley Bank. There's probably a few people in the audience who don't know Silicon Valley Bank. I'm sure many of you do. But we're a medium-sized commercial bank based here in Silicon Valley in Santa Clara. And we focus on what we call the innovation economy, which is really basically being the banker for the startup community and then the investment community, the venture capitalists that actually fund the startups. And we focus very specifically in a few specific industries that include technology, life sciences, clean tech, the venture capital community themselves, we bank them, and then of course everyone's personal favorite, the premium wine industry up in the Napa and Sonoma Valley. So that's our focus. This is our 30th anniversary. I've only been with the company for 2 years, so I can't take credit for 30 years. But we started in the Valley, and really, we basically extended this kind of debt financing business model to really help work synergistically with the venture capital businesses across the United States, and now we've gone internationally. Big focus in the last 2 years that I've been at the bank has been our global expansion. So we have 28 offices around the United States. We also have offices in the UK, Israel, India, and we've also opened a JV in Shanghai and in China. And really the idea is that we want to be able to bank the innovation economy and the entrepreneurs that are in that community anywhere that they need to be. And while at the beginning of the history of the bank we really focused on very early stage startup companies, and we still do that, we now provide products and services across the board, so you can essentially grow through every stage of a company post-IPO, and we can still successfully bank those companies, and that's our new business model. So that's a little bit about SVB. Let me talk a little bit about my own background. I've been in IT management positions for about 25 years. I was at Morgan Stanley for about 16 of those years, initially in New York, but worked also in Tokyo and covered Asia, and then later here in the Bay Area. I've also been a strategic consulting person who's basically doing strategic consulting for CIO advisory. Again, primarily focused in financial services, but I've been in that industry for some time. Came to the bank really with a focus around cloud computing and helped the bank think about their cloud computing strategy, which we're now executing against. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Milo. And Tim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Lee from Sequoia Capital. I'm a partner in their early stage fund, which means I work with young companies, anywhere from 2 people and an idea to Series A companies, primarily in the mobile space. And I've been involved with a number of consumer companies as well as enterprise-focused ones. Some of the Sequoia companies in and around mobile and enterprise would be more consumer-focused Evernote, Dropbox, to enterprise-focused companies like Mobile Iron. I'm on the board of a company called Clutch Mobile, which also does mobile security. Our interest is in finding the companies that are going to be market leaders 10 years from now, 20 years from now, which are going to endure into perpetuity. We look for long-term sustainable companies, and it's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you guys, who I imagine are at just the start of that journey.
Okay, very excited to have you guys here. So I'm going to actually start with the first question, which applies to all of you guys, but from a very, very different perspective. In terms of mobile enterprise, what are some of the latest trends and some exciting things that you see? BYOB, obviously, sort of a buzzword, but tell us a little bit more what you're excited about.
Who wants to jump in?
Well, I can start with one. I just mentioned that one of our companies, Evernote, and I think the really interesting thing that's going on right now is that inside of any enterprise, the bar for an enterprise app is as high as it's ever been, because people have the consumer bar in mind. The thing that really people relate to along these lines is Gmail being used in the workforce today. And I think no longer can an enterprise company say that we're going to take a different approach to all those consumer companies out there and push through the IT organization a product which the employees will have to use no matter what, because we say so. People are bringing their own devices in. People have in their own minds a concept of what a quality application should be. And if it's not a quality application, they just won't use it. And a company like Evernote, while it's not, it wasn't set up as an enterprise company, it's finding itself used in all manner of enterprises and businesses for business purposes. That is the bar, the standard that's being set now for enterprise companies.
By the way, we're using Evernote, and I'm a complete believer in what you just said. So I think
Thank you very much.
You can actually disagree. It's okay.
That's okay. We're using Evernote. So I'm the guy that for most of my career was the take what you get and like it IT guy that we just talked about, who's having a hard time these days. But that said, it's a very exciting...
Is that enough disagreement?
But it's an exciting era as we see the huge proliferation of smartphones, a billion smartphones, and growing faster than any other consumer technology trend in history, including the adoption of the internet, including the adoption of PCs in the 80s, including even social media. It's the actual fastest trend ever. And that is combined with the availability of bandwidth and very intelligent applications in the cloud. So it's really this incredible ability to have access to intuitive applications wherever you are, and use them on whatever device you want to be. That is basically now just a de facto paradigm that we're all living with. It's very different than when I entered the IT back in the days of mainframes and green screens. Okay, so a big change. So what's exciting to me is the complexity of thinking about how we're going to move down a continuum of a sort of a lockdown standardized approach to IT to the world that everybody lives in out in their homes, and if you're lucky enough to be in a startup with a zero footprint IT model where you just have laptops and bandwidth and you just get at it. It's very different than when you have a multi-million-dollar set of infrastructure. You have all of the regulatory concerns that any bank has in terms of privacy of data and security of data. It's a lot of challenges, and so to me the exciting thing is to see this consumerization of IT and this basically this enterprise mobile set of investments that are happening to really enable the security that's going to allow that kind of computing paradigm to exist in the enterprise. Because we haven't been there yet. I think we're getting there increasingly faster. And as I watch that, it will happen.
Yeah, I think one of the very interesting things we're seeing now is a lot of our customers have kind of moved beyond the BYO stage. That was, BYO was a very 2010 kind of thing. And what we're finding to be very interesting is what we kind of refer to as a sort of mobile transformation. So what we're seeing with our customers is they're realizing, in part because they actually took that first step, which is enabling BYO, every one of my employees, every one of my business partners, and every one of my end consumer customers probably, and it depends on geography, and there's some qualifications on that kind of broad statement, but for the most part, every one of them actually has this mobile computing device in their hand, whether it's an Android device, smartphone, tablet, whatever. So now what we're starting to see them do is completely rethink business process. Because in the old days, to extend business process to a business partner, it's a really difficult thing. It's like you've got your IT environment, you've got your Active Directory, you've got your Exchange environment, whatever it might be. It's like, well, how do I possibly integrate that? And so a lot of companies made a lot of money with very expensive projects that almost always failed or were only moderately successful in trying to knit all that stuff together. Well, now there's two things I can pretty much count on. You got a device, and I can get an app on that thing. And so that's really, really cool when you start to think about the kinds of apps you can build to connect your employees, your business partner, your end customer in real time to fundamentally change business process. And so that's really that's kind of the next wave of things that we're starting to see our customers do beyond the basics of get me email, get me access to SharePoint and other things like that. These transformative workflows are really starting to take off. Very, very cool to see what's going on now.
So I want to ask things a little bit more concrete because most of us are fairly new. I actually used to work for Siebel and Oracle for about 8 years. And back then, it takes to implement one, actually for AT&T, it took us like 2 years to implement CRM, right? So now you just touch on everybody have a device and you have no problem, make sure that an app can get that app on there. So help us understand, let's say I have an app, what sort of sales cycle are we talking about? Like if I have an app, like you talking to Milo, does it take weeks or are you talking about years? Should we even bother to think about it as a startup?
Well, I guess we'll get Milo's perspective as the customer side of the equation. On the selling side of the equation, I would say, well, two things. One, you should think about it, number one. Number two, I would say that, one of the assets you can think about leveraging are companies like Good or AirWatch or Mobileye or people that are already active in the space. We've already figured out how to sell to guys like this. We have lawyers who do nothing but write master service agreements that are acceptable to global 2,000 companies. And trust me, you do not want to spend VC money on that. That is not a good use of your asset. But the cool thing is there are ecosystems that are developing around this, and folks like us, we're just trying to solve problems for our customers. So if you have an application or maybe a modified version of the app, something that can be customized and brought into one of these transformative workflows I just talked about, we have a way to get you in. What we want to see is give us the ideas, give us the what are these cool things. So it can be done, and the cool thing is you don't necessarily have to build all the infrastructure around that. And my favorite example of this is anybody know the app Goodreader? No connection to our company, just pure blind luck that it's called that. So this guy, Yuri Selyukov, sitting in an apartment somewhere in Russia, he sells thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of seats of his application to do good to our customers. And he's selling to banks and healthcare providers and government agencies. Now imagine, there's no way, if you walked into the front door of those companies and said, hey, I'm Yuri, buy my excellent software, they will call security. And so this is the cool thing that's happening when you combine something that people want, and that started as a consumer value prop. Our end customers within these enterprises wanted that experience. We enabled a model where we could connect the dots, and now Yuri, one guy, is selling enterprise software to Fortune 100 banks. It's pretty cool. It can happen.
So Milo, do you agree with what he just said? If he came to you and said, use Goodreader, what do you think?
So I definitely wouldn't probably let Yuri in if I didn't know who he was. I think that part was probably accurate. And in New York, it would be even worse, having worked in New York for a long time. In Silicon Valley, you might get in, you might get squared down afterwards. But I think that really the interesting thing that you have to watch is the adoption, of the enterprise app store, right? So actually, we don't actually have an enterprise app store, right? So you
can help you with that.
Yeah. So he was making a sale earlier tonight before the panel. We have good for the enterprise, but we don't have good dynamics yet. But by the end of the night, he's going to sign me up. Then, at that point, right, I can have Yuri's app, and I can have after some business terms, you do a few deals later, then I can quickly download the rest of the applications, including the good reader. But that's actually a key enabler, right? So we made a decision to focus specifically on our client-facing mobile applications in terms of building the framework and the middleware and the platforms for that. So we use HTML5 and PhoneGap, and we're delivering that as a hybrid application to our clients. We're in the iOS and Android store as of December, and it's been a lot of downloads. Our clients are very happy. Huge success story. And now we're thinking about how we're going to use those frameworks, going into next year, because we still have 3 more releases on our client-facing app, into using that framework to build our own internal apps. But right now, we're really leveraging just the basic kind of bare minimum where the key demand was back in 2010, the BYO demand that you were mentioning, which was to really, hey, I want my email on my iOS smartphone or on my Android. I want my contacts, I want my calendar, I want the basic essentials. And we've layered into that also the ability to deliver some workflow productivity apps through the secure browser on Good. But according to Gartner, I was looking this up, by 2017, about 25% of enterprises will have an enterprise app store. So, and I think we'll probably be there well before that. So we're not an early adopter, but we won't be a late adopter either, probably by next year. But that's really the key point. So as an enterprise gets an app store, then it becomes very easy, just as easy as it is for, or not quite as easy because there's going to be control around that in terms of, the governance model internally. But then once the app store is there, it's much easier for me to have a trusted partner to bring trusted applications into the enterprise.